Hi everyone, this is Mindy and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be creating this patterned background using the Geo Flower Building stamp set from Msti Stamp. Here's a quick look at a couple of the supplies that I'll be using today, starting with that Geo Flower Building stamp set. Lots of options here. There's also a coordinating die that I will be using, and then I'm also going to be picking a sentiment from the Sisters Forever stamp set. I started off by picking out an image from the stamp set, which happens to be this floral pattern with 4 petals, and I'm placing this onto some Hammermill cardstock. Now, my stamp is pretty conditioned because I had already used it, but you really want to make sure you rub your hand over it until that clear stamp is actually kind of cloudy looking. You can also condition your stamp set by inking it up with a Versamark ink or even just cleaning it with maybe a tidy towel. Main reason is because we want it to be nice and conditioned and prepped so it will accept ink better. Now I am inking this up in Cheeky ink from Msti Stamp, and you can see since I conditioned it so good, it stamps absolutely beautiful that first time. So what I'm going to do is just flip my cardstock, and I'm going to stamp it again down here at the bottom because I really want to have a lot of these flower images to be able to cover the front of my card. Now I'll just clean that with my tidy towel. I'm going to move it over a little bit. I'm not placing it too close to the other one because I want to be able to give myself room to place the coordinating die over the top. Now you don't necessarily have to have the coordinating die, but I really do prefer having that so it gives me more options. I can pop these up on the front of the card if I like. Now, once I had a bunch of these flowers stamped out, I picked out a small circle that's also on that stamp set, and I conditioned that really well. And I'm going to ink this up in Sunflower, I think it's Sunflower ink from Concord and Ninth, and I'm just going to put that on a small clear block and stamp that right in the center. I could have used the Msti, but it really just went a lot quicker using a small block. Now I'm going to stamp some leaves. So there are some leaves on here that are kind of together right next to each other as one stamp. There's kind of more of a petal looking one, and then there's one that has more of a squarish shape to it. I am picking the ones that have more of that teardrop or that petal look to it. And for these, I'm going to stamp this in Limelicious ink from Msti Stamp, and just doing the same thing I did before where I'm turning my cardstock and stamping it again, cleaning it, moving it until I have a bunch of these petals stamped out. Then I'm going to trim these down into just a thin strip, and the reason I'm doing that is so that I can run it through this mini die cutting machine. This is the compact cutter from Hero Arts, so I will line up the coordinating dies for the leaves and the flowers and run these through the machine. I just like having this smaller die cutting machine on my table because with smaller images like this, it goes a lot quicker when you have a mini die cut machine. Now that all of my images are die cut out, I'm going to take my flowers and I'm going to glue them to the leaves. So I put a little bit of my Barely Art glue down at the bottom of the leaf set and then added some glue kind of to just the corners of the flower that I'm going to attach that part to, if that makes sense. Just a little bit of glue on the flower and a little bit of glue on the leaves is the simplest way to probably put it. I went through and did that for all of them. So all of my groupings are kind of one piece right now. Now I'm going to be attaching this on a piece of white cardstock that is cut to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I'm going to add a little bit of dimension to this by cutting 2 more pieces of heavyweight cardstock to that same size. And I'm going to layer these together. So instead of using foam tape, which you very well could do, I just like to layer a couple pieces of cardstock. Then I can start lining these up on that cardstock. And I really wanted to have these kind of bleeding off of the edge. And I don't want the pattern to look too boxy or too organized. So what I did is I started with the 2 on the bottom, and then my next row, I'm just kind of shifting over just slightly. I'm trying to keep the gaps in between each row and each flower pretty consistent, but I'm really just eyeballing it. So once I have kind of everything in place, I'm going to come in and add a tape runner to the back of the flowers. I could have added some foam squares if I wanted to pop that up, but I feel like just by having the dimension on the card panel that I'm attaching these onto was enough dimension. And plus, I know I'm going to have a sentiment on here, so I didn't want it to be too built up where it would be hard to mail. So I can continue up the front of my card, just adding that tape runner and having them hang off of the edge, and also just trying to eyeball it and make sure everything is even. I do need to add a few more to the top to make this consistent. So what I'll do is just take my scissors, flip my card panel over, and trim off any of that excess. Now, since I still needed some for the top of the card, I did go off screen and stamp a couple more of these flower bunches so I could make that consistent, and then trim those off as well. So now that I have my design complete, I can go ahead and attach this to an A2 size card front, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And keep in mind, you could do some masking and create this as a 1-layer card as well. Moving on to my sentiment, I am using this Sisters Forever stamp set. I love all these different sentiments and the mixing of the fonts. I picked one out and I'm going to stamp this in Cheeky ink, which is the same color that I did my flowers in. Now, I'm definitely guilty of not using my colored inks enough with sentiments. I use them a lot for ink blending and doing my backgrounds, but I never use them for sentiments. But I did stamp one in black just to have and kind of use to take a look at. I used the coordinating die to die cut them out, and I'm placing them here to just show you the look. Now, yes, the black looks great on it. It really pops off the front of the card, but I was trying to get out of my box a little bit, and I'm going to go with the sentiment that I stamped in that Cheeky ink color. I really need to just kind of change up my design once in a while and get out of my habits. So I die cut the sentiment a couple more times from white cardstock, and I'm going to layer these together to just kind of help lift it off of the background, and adding that dimension also helps give you visual separation, I guess is the best way to put it. So then I added the liquid glue to the back of that and placed that on the front of the card. Then to finish up my card front, I'm going to bring in some of these Angel Aura Rhinestones from Gina K Designs, and I'm going to use my little pickup tool here and some liquid glue to place those around my sentiment. And that's going to finish off my card project. So I really could have gone with either sentiment, whether stamped in black or in this color. Neither one of them is wrong, and maybe you prefer the black to stand out a little bit more, but I also want to encourage you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. This to me was stepping out of my comfort zone. I really love how it came together and how these colors tied together. I will have all of my supplies listed down below in the video description and over on my blog as well. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. Thank you so much, and I will see you again soon.